To the midday news. This bulletin is coming to you live from the Joy 99.7 FM studios. Kokumlemle in Accra at digital address GA0993341. Also live on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi. Affiliates across the country on ABN Radio in London and around the world at myjoyonline.com. The news is brought to you by Telesol 4G, just a touch. In this edition, as an Accra High Court judge summons Boku Central MP Mahama Ayariga to appear before court, we'll hear from the MP as he argues it is dangerous for MPs' privileges not to be respected.
I'm ready to go to court at any time. I'm waiting for your guidance. The Constitution is clear on the matter that I cannot be forced to court when this Parliament is sitting and in session.
We have more on this as he indicates his readiness to face the court will also be live in court. And also, resident of Keta hits the streets to protest against what they call mysterious killings of 25 people in the community between 2015 till date.
We are here to demonstrate against the killing of people in Keta. They all come out to demonstrate against the killing. In fact, my own sister was involved.
We'll hear more as they take on the police for doing little to unravel the death. And as we mark 40 years of the 1979 June 4 uprising, we begin the build-up to the second in our series of crimes that shook the nation, titled Scars of the Revolution.
In this country, supposed to be 24 years of independence.
As he was lying down dying with a machine gun, they fired so much into his body that his flesh started shredding out.
We'll tell you how this insurrection led to the death of then Army Commander Major General Odate Wellington. We have sports.
And of course, that's in 20 minutes where Accra Hearts of Oak are focused on preparing for Asante Kotoko's Tier 1 semi-final clash next week, despite Kotoko's agitation over the semi-final format.
And later, President Akufo-Addo chides Ghanaian women for not doing enough to earn a place at the decision-making table.
Not enough movement is being made by the 52% of the Ghanaian population that are women to be able to be in the position to make these decisions.
And that's coming up later here on the Midday News with me, Emefa Apau. Let's settle for the details now. And Boko Central MP Mahama Ayariga has been handed up until 1 p.m. to show up in court. An Accra High Court Judge, Justice Efia Asare Buche, gave the order after she was informed by the MP's lawyers that he was unavailable for trial when the case was called this morning. There are two cases against the MP filed at the court relating to procurement of ambulances for his constituents and tax evasion. Mr. Ayariga had earlier written to the special prosecutor saying he will be unable to show up in court due to parliamentary proceedings. But when he turned up in Parliament today, Mr. Ayariga raised the issue on the floor, insisting on his immunity from being summoned before court during sitting. He, however, said he would later appear today before court to insist on his immunity from being summoned before court during sitting, but show up with a letter from the Speaker communicating MPs have privileges.
So, Mr. Speaker, I'm ready to go to court at any time. I'm waiting for your guidance. The Constitution is clear on the matter that I cannot be forced to court when this Parliament is sitting and in session. It will clearly amount to an infringement of Article 122. Article 122 binds everybody, Mr. Speaker. It binds the executive, it binds the judiciary, it binds Parliament. So it is a constitutional provision that is not subject to anything, unlike other constitutional provisions that are subjected to other conditionalities. It is not subject to anything. So, Mr. Speaker, this is the latest development this morning, that my lawyers were in court, that the judge insists that I should come. Even though, Mr. Speaker, as I speak, the service has not been effected on me. No service has been effected on me.
Boko Central MP Mahama Ayariga there. Now, Speaker of Parliament Professor Michael Quay, who reviewed his office, had been contacted by the Special Prosecutor's Office, called a recess for leadership of the House to take a decision on the matter.
What is your approach towards you are being in court this morning. You have categorically stated that as you stand here before this panel, no court of competent jurisdiction has issued a warrant or any form of summons for you to appear before it. But what you have is an invitation. Is that the case? And for that matter, what is the development on this day when you are invited? As a matter of making a point that you will appear before the court on non-sitting days, and whatever the judge says, you will then take it up from there.
You heard the Speaker, Michael Quay. Now let's go on the line and speak to parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gakpo for more on what is happening on the floor. So Joseph, first give us more details on that leadership meeting that was called by the Speaker. What exactly were their decision?
So we are yet to hear from the Speaker again on what the way forward will be. Mr. Ayariga had requested that the Speaker rules on whether MPs can be summoned before court at times when they are supposed to be in Parliament. And the Speaker indicated that this is a substantive issue, and so he would want some more time in order to come to that conclusion. So he suspended sitting well close to an hour ago, indicating that he would be back in 30 minutes to give that ruling. But the House hasn't actually resumed from that particular sitting. Mr. Ayariga made other arguments in his case, claiming that there had been an attempt by the Office of the Special Prosecutor to serve him with the court proceedings, but Parliament had written to the Special Prosecutor's Office indicating that they were using the wrong processes and that he was expecting that they would have corrected that and served him appropriately, but that hadn't been done. Those were some of the arguments that were raised, but one of the things that the Speaker indicated even before he called for the break in the sitting of the House was that an agreement had been reached at a pre-sitting meeting that Mr. Ayariga was actually going to show up, which is something Mr. Ayariga confirmed, but that he will be showing up with a Speaker from Parliament indicating that they cannot be dealt with at times when they are supposed to be on the floor. But he's expected to give that full ruling when the House resumes sitting any moment from now. We are still waiting. Emefa.
Given the disposition of the judge, I am a law-abiding citizen, an honorable member of this House. I have no intention of violating a court order. My initial position was based on the fact that no service had been served on me by the court. And now that I have information from my lawyer that the court is sitting and has actually issued an instruction that I must attend, I intend to comply and to go to the court and with a certification from you, Mr. Speaker, that this Parliament is sitting and in session, inform the court that I have constitutional objections to being compelled to be in court on days when Parliament is sitting so that I can invite the court to take a decision on that matter.
Now, Gakpo, just before we let you off, we know that the court may be close to Parliament House, but he has just about 50 minutes to appear before the court as directed by the judge. Have you still spotted him around Parliament?
He is in Parliament. He is on the floor alongside other members of Parliament, and the indication is that any moment from now the House will resume the sitting. If you can hear in the background, the bell was being rung for MPs to get back, giving the indication that the Speaker may well be ready to give his final ruling on Mr. Ayariga's request, so that then the way forward will be fully determined.
As soon as the Speaker is ready, we'll get back to you, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo. But let's head to the court, which is pretty close to the Parliament House. And my colleague, Joseph Akable, is there. Now, Joseph, earlier, the judge had said that the case could not progress without the MP's presence. We now know that Mr. Ayariga will be in court in the next hour. What are we to expect from what his lawyers tell you?
In fact, I tried to ask the lawyers whether Mr. Ayariga had been served with the court processes and whether he was aware he was supposed to show up in court today. And they informed me that they have indeed filed some objections relating to the process leading to this particular case. So they make the point that once this case is called and once it shows up eventually, they intend to raise up this issue of the objection. I tried to ask them directly whether they've got a confirmation that Mr. Ayariga will indeed be showing up. The response was that we have an objection and we'll raise that objection once the case is called. So they didn't answer either yes or no about whether he will be present in court.
Okay, we wait to see. It's just a few hours more, a few minutes more, and then we'll be following proceedings there as well with my colleague Joseph Akable. But while we wait, let's move on to some other stories now, because residents from 4 Anglon communities in the Volta region have this morning been demonstrating on the street of Keta over what they describe as mysterious deaths recorded in recent times. The residents say the mysterious killing started some 6 years ago, but very little has been done to address the security situation or even arrest the perpetrators of the crime. The residents say the situation has worsened in the last few months.
We are here to demonstrate against the killing of people in Kita. In fact, today all the youth are ready. They all come out to demonstrate against the killing. In fact, my own sister was involved. Last month, she was killed in Kita here. So today you want to remove all the youth are happy today that today you want to remove our heart feeling to the whole Ghana and Angola as well.
Well, we are told you are demonstrating against the police because they are not proactive or they are not working enough, hard enough to get the killers, the alleged killers. Is that true?
In fact, when it happened to my sister up to now, I've not seen any result to show that yes, they have found a justice to this. But every day is happening. Yes.
You heard there a demonstrator there interacting with my colleague Ivy Setoji, and thankfully she joins us on the line. So Ivy, has the demonstration ended?
Not yet. As we speak, the demonstrators are gathered at the Anglo-Gan District Assembly to petition or to present the petition to the district chief executive.
Now, when was the last killing as we know it?
Well, according to the assembly member for the area, Brazdejo, the last killing at the area was last month.
But you've also been speaking to the assemblyman, like you just said, in the area. What other concerns have they been raising about the situation?
Well, the assemblyman said that the authorities appear not to bother so much about the killings. They come and talk with the people, advise them on what to do, and they go back, and nothing is being heard. Especially the police, according to him, are not doing anything about this issue. They arrest the people and later release them that they have not found anything against them. So they are asking the authorities, especially government, to do something about it, and or maybe ask the police to do something about the situation so that they can arrest the people they are suspecting, because they believe that these people they are suspecting are the real killers.
The way I walked back, they were frightened, as if maybe I was going to take something, a weapon or something like that. So quickly, one ordered the other to just leave. So they jumped onto their motor and then they left. Before I realized, one Robertson, Nevermore, came there. So I asked him whether he saw the police, and he saw them. So we quickly rushed to the police station, but then they have moved already. So I report to the police, and then they say, as at the time, they cannot make any effort to arrest those people because they've already left.
So you are saying that your life is at risk?
Yes, my life is at risk because it's just because I was trying to discover when people see to the bodies.
Now, Ivy, briefly tell us what the police have been saying about the claims made by the residents.
Well, yes, I spoke with the police commander, that's the ASP Amenyo, on phone. According to him, the demonstrators did not follow due process in demonstrating, that the police are doing their best to unravel these killings. They are only asking the demonstrators or the residents of these 4 communities in Anglo district to exercise patience and give the police enough time to unravel this issue, that the police is doing its best. They are saying that the police did not give them permit to go on the demonstrations today. And so here we don't see there's no police among the demonstrators or guarding them. So that was what the police said.
You heard there our Volta regional correspondent Ivy Setoji. Now today, exactly 40 years ago, junior officers in Ghana's army rose up against their senior officers in the bloody uprising that replaced the FWK Ekufu-led military regime. As we build up to the second special assignment series on crimes that shook the nation titled Scars of the Revolution, today we'll hear how this insurrection happened, leading to the death of then Army Commander Major General Odate Wellington.
In this country, supposed to be 24 years of independence, without the true economic power lying in the hands of the people of this country.
On 15th May 1979, there was a mutiny in the Ghana Armed Forces. Things took a dramatic turn when, at the trial of the mutinous soldiers, Director of Public Prosecutions George Akins went out of his way to defend their conduct. Overnight, the band of conspirators became heroes. On the 4th of June, Captain Ba Achamfo was commanding the rebellious soldiers from the 5th Battalion Regiment. He explains how the release of Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings developed into a full-scale revolt, resulting in the overthrow of the military regime of FWK Ekufu.
We had wind that he was going to be executed that day. Somehow the explosion occurred that day. He was rescued from certain death.
The squadron commander at the Reki Regiment, Major Ibrahim Reader, reveals how the army commander at the time, Major General Neville Alexander Odate Wellington, was killed later on that day.
Around about, it was close to 3 o'clock, the police drove him to Nima police station. And as he got out of the armored cars to go into the office, he was seen. And some soldiers were summoned and told them there was a general hiding in there. They just got in there, they just opened fire at the office where he was in. And he was hit. He fell down, ordered his ADC to leave. And as he was lying down, dying, the normal way would have been for him to be given medical aid immediately. Instead, they opened fire on his body with a machine gun. They fired so much into his body that his flesh started shredding out. They literally shredded his body.
Daughter of the late Major General Esther Odate Wellington, who was in boarding school at Achimota when her father died, disclosed the family went through a lot of pain and difficulty after the demise of their breadwinner.
It was terrible. It was terrible. I was a teenager. I was writing my O-levels when I learned that my father had been killed. One didn't go as far as one could have done. But there was no home to come to because my mother had to leave. It was very dangerous, so she had to leave. The house was completely ransacked and looted and everything was taken away.
Now, meanwhile, former President Jerry John Rawlings and other leading members of the June 4 uprising have today been addressing a grand debate of chiefs and people at the Nungwa Traditional Authority Park. My colleague Roland Walker is at the Nungwa Park and joins us live. Roland, tell us how the 40th anniversary of the June 4 uprising is being marked.
So far, it's been marked pretty well. So far, also, we've had an excessive amount of rain that had been drizzling over the period, but it looks like the organization had been well put together with the presence of security as well as the presence of leading members not only of the NDC at the time but currently the NDC. And we've had a number of speeches from some key personalities like Senator Rawlings. We've had also Alhaji Hudu Yaya, but currently we have former President Jerry John Rawlings, who was also chairman of the Provisional National Defense Council, also speaking.
Our discipline of today guarantees our sustainability for tomorrow. Our current sense of self-discipline is an influence earth. Thank you, other speakers.
Hello?
Citizens do not feel responsible enough
We'll get to hear more excerpts of that statement or that speech from the former president, Jerry John Rawlings. He's been speaking on a number of issues, and my colleague Roland Walker. The other speakers also scheduled to address the gathering include the NDC General Secretary Johnson Asiedu Inketia. We'll get more here on the Midday News with me, Emefa Apa. We will take a quick break at this point, and still to come, Attorney General denies reports of missing Shraj report on Zoom Lion. We bring you Joy News evidence of at least 2 occasions the Attorney General said the report could not be found. Also, we'll get to hear from President Akufo-Addo as he chides Ghanaian women for not doing enough to earn a place at the decision-making table. Thanks for staying with us here on the Midday News. Let's do sports now. And Nathaniel Atto has the very latest from the world of sports.
June 4, where were you?
Where were you? Because at least I was supposed to be born.
Don't worry, that story I'll tell you later in the day. So Accra Hearts of Oak are focused on their preparations ahead of their Tier 1 semi-final game against Kumasi Asante Kotoko, their arch rivals, next week. Now, this is according to the spokesperson, Opariado. Now, Kotoko have threatened to boycott the game should organizers fail to move the match to a neutral ground. Now, they also requested that the tie could be played over 2 legs. Now, the normalization committee has rejected Kotoko's request and stated that the match will go on as planned. It is unclear what Kotoko will do in terms of their next line of action, but their opponents, Hearts of Oak, are not thinking about that. All right, so Kwame Opariado has been talking about, Accra Hearts of Oak's relative focus, ahead of this game, and so would be following him and bringing you more, on that game. But a lot of football fans wanted to see this game, in the final rather. So and it all has to do with the kind of format we're playing. So Asante Kotoko is the, Asante Kotoko Accra Hearts of Oak is the biggest fixture we have when it comes to our club football in the country.
Thank you very much, Nat, for the latest from the world of sports. Now, the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice has denied reports that a Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice report on Zoom Lion cannot be found after it was submitted to the AG. The report was submitted to the Attorney General in June 2018, but when Joy News followed up on a number of occasions, the Attorney General said the report could not be found. After Joy News publication of the story, however, the Attorney General said that is not accurate. My colleague Raymond Akwa has a copy of the AG statement and joins me in the studio for more on the Attorney General's response. What are the details?
So first, it mentions that 2 Shraj reports were received by their office in June 2018. Both reports were forwarded under cover of a letter with the subject submission of report of investigation pursuant to Section 10.3 of the Whistleblower Act 2016, Act 720. The specific details says, whereas the first report dated 7 June 2018 was received on 11 June 2018, it was forwarded to the Director of Public Prosecutions. The second report, dated 22nd June 2018, was received at the office on 27th June 2018 and forwarded to the Solicitor General for necessary action. There's another point to make here, and that reference says that when the investigative journalist, Mr. Azure, first inquired about the report, he stated that there's a report on Zoom Lion sent to our office by Shraj. A search on the department's data system could not trace any such report because the entries made in our system captures the subject matter as is on the forwarding letter, the date of the letter and the date received. We therefore could not trace a Shraj report on Zoom Lion in our data system since those details were not details captured in the system.
However, Manasseh Azuria-Wune, who broke the story, says the Attorney General's explanation cannot be true. He also joins me in the studio. Manasseh, do we have evidence that the Attorney General knew exactly what we were requesting?
Yes, before we even come to the evidence, let's subject this statement to common sense analysis. You got 2 reports from Shraj, and I came to you and said I needed a Shraj report on Zoom Lion. So the common sense approach is to look at the 2 and look at which of them relates to Zoom Lion. So if that was not done and you told me you couldn't find it, what is it? But that is even not the case. We have evidence of engagement. I first went to the Attorney General in October 2018, and she said she didn't know about this report and suggested that I presented further particulars. So I sent an email on the 31st of October to her personal assistant, and there are email traces if anybody doubts. Then the response was that we should they would go and then run a check. They ran the check and came back to me and said still they could not find it. So I went back to Shraj and said the Attorney General's department is saying they have searched through their system, they couldn't find it. So give me evidence that you submitted this report. And Shraj was kind enough to give me the transmitter letter, which has the exact details of the report which the Attorney General entered in their system. I forwarded that transmitter letter to the Attorney General on the 8th of January 2019, and they still came back and said they couldn't find it. So if anybody is saying that the name we were using to search was not the same as what they entered in their system, there is evidence that the transmitter letter from Shraj, we gave it to them and still they couldn't find it. As of yesterday, when we were doing the story, the producers of the Super Morning Show were still communicating with top officials of the ministry, and they told us that they couldn't find it. Later that afternoon, they called us that they were able to find the documents.
Okay, so we've been following this since October 2018.
October 2018, and the last communication we had with them in respect of this particular report was on the 13th of May 2019, and we have done several checks and tried giving them a lot of opportunities to come back to us with the exact information, but they couldn't.
Well, that's my colleague Manasseh Azuri Winnie. Thanks so much for that clarification. You're still listening to the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. We'll move on to some other stories now because the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is in Toronto, and there's been a number of talk about some comments that he is supposed to have made, and he's saying that Ghanaian women have not done enough to earn a place at the decision-making table. According to him, even though women make up more than 50% of the population in Ghana, he hasn't seen enough movement at the most critical parts of the nation to effect the change gender activists seek. He's been speaking at the Women Deliver conference in Vancouver, Canada, and that's generated so much talk on social media, and we're told that the president at a point was being heckled, but we can hear President Akufo-Addo.
52% of our population is women. So if we have to have an ordered society, to have a fair society, those statistics should count.
Now, another Ghanaian who addressed the gathering but whose speech did not stir controversy was DJ Switch, and she's been speaking on planning a future with children in mind. Listen.
I want to share some 3 key words. TLC. Allow us, we the young ones, to tell you our dreams, our needs, our wants, and also the challenges we face regarding quality education, good health and well-being, and the gender equality. L. Listen. Listen to us carefully, because we are curious, we say things the way we see them. Clarify. Clarify what we say so that you can understand us and build the solutions around us, because the future of my generation is what matters.
And that's DJ Switch. Let's check out what's trending on social media maps.
Well, people are talking about the president and what he delivered at the women's conference. This one is from @Allah, who says, best moments of the panel ever. Passionately explaining to President of Ghana why doors remain closed to women, the dynamic and incredible women that the doors remain closed to. It's up to the men to amplify them and not to empower them as they have agencies. This one is from Ed Sharifa, who says, AU gender champion, my whatever, how bad can it actually get? Baba Dua says, little Natasha came to light up the stage and your president came too. Sad to say, I am not a proud Ghanaian after our acclaimed gender champion took the stage at Women Deliver. Sharifa says, dear African leaders, never ever send Nana Nado to represent us anywhere again. Such an unfortunate incident.
And that's it for the midday news on Joy 99.7 FM. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I am Emefa Apau.